The women's free skate at the 2022 Beijing Olympics is officially complete, and as expected, it was drama-packed, although maybe not exactly like we were expecting. I gotta say, I had this video planned out to get a closer look at what was happening on the technical side of things, but I think right now what everybody is analyzing what happened after the competition and just trying to make sense of the aftermath of that event and what we saw. But nonetheless, I am Coach Leaf, and I am going to take a look at some of the elements that we saw in this competition and just contextualize them, give my thoughts on why the judges scored them that way. Not even necessarily my opinion, but just kind of looking at what I saw that makes me think the judges judged a certain way. And we're definitely going to take a look at some of the inconsistencies and point out some things that were definitely in line with what we might call overscoring, or some things that maybe need to be examined after this season, because something tells me that if backloading programs was enough to make a sweeping change to the rules, we might be seeing some rule changes. I don't know what those are even going to look like. I can't even begin to speculate whether we're talking an age limit, whether we're talking a further examination in this doping scandal. I think there's just a lot going on right now, and the ending of this event really emphasized how much of a disarray the sport is in at the moment. But let's take a look at some of these amazing elements. I want to start it with Alyssa Liu, because she just had a joyous skate. I think she was a breath of fresh air in an event where everybody looked nervous and angry. She just looked like she was having the time of her life. Like, she had two phenomenal skates at the Olympics, and she was happy to do that, and I just couldn't be prouder of her for that. And also, even though this triple axel did get the downgrade, I think it's worth looking at, because this girl has a future. I still feel she's not necessarily going to be like what we're predicting is going to happen with these Russian ladies, and they are going to be out of the competition by the next 4 years. We might see Alyssa Liu in 4 years, and she might have this triple axel under her belt. So let's take a look at exactly how close she was to getting this called clean. And you're going to see, by the way, full disclosure here, this camera is just the same camera that we watched the competition on NBC with. This is not how we should be examining these jumps. If we really want to get the most accurate, best measurements, we need to have cameras that give us many, 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 many more frames than this, and of different angles too, but most importantly, more frames so that we can get accurate reads. So if you see some of the times pop up and there's a little bit of differentiation, understand that I'm working with at least 9/100ths of a second of time that really I can't capture because of the lack of frames that we're getting. So there's going to be a little discrepancy between my times, and I'm going to talk about when and where we're timing them, so we can all at least get to some agreements on the measurements, so at least the measurements within this video are consistent, and we can compare them between skaters. Okay, so Alyssa Liu, triple axel. Let's go ahead and take a look. It's going to go a little bit slow here because we're going to watch this in slow motion. And first, I just want to take a look at her takeoff. And I like her triple axel a lot, so this is a really good look at what she's doing to not only get a good takeoff and find herself in a good position to be able to land this, but also what she can do from here to maybe give herself a little bit more time in the air, which is going to probably be needed going forward. So we're here, we're approaching our jump, and you can see here she's getting those arms pulled back. By the way, classic American technique right there. We're going to get those arms to go back and up with the jump, and she's getting that good little bit of torque on that left side with that right side follow through. And here we go. She has fully left the ice, and you can see our timer has started. And I always like to take a look right here. She's got a little bit of a tilt in the air, but you can see she's finding that right side. And by the time we get to her landing, she's right over that. Little bit of a tilt out to the left. And this probably actually contributed to why this particular jump was a little short. So I have her landing right here about this frame. You can see she's just about to touch the ice. You can get pretty clear confirmation right there. You can see the ice is now fully hit, but again, we're talking a lot of frames are missing right in between there. And this is what I think the judges saw that gave her the under rotation. on this. And let's try and see if we can go back just a little bit more. A little bit too far. Right there, and that I think is the quarter turn that they saw, and you can kind of see on that edge on that landing, you can see it very, very faintly here. There's a little bit of a skated out edge of that, which is usually going to get the attention of the judges, and you know, in this case it did get the downgrade call. So just something there. That takeoff is very good though. She's really maximizing her takeoff at just a smidge more height, and I could see a situation where she gets the strength to get that height and get that triple axel clean again. She could still be a force to be reckoned with if she keeps skating like this. So a lot of joy in that. I just thought that was a good way to start the video. Now let's get into some of the medalists in this event. Obviously there's a lot of controversy, but we're just going to take a look at these and judge them as I think the judges are going to call them. And so right here we have the quad flip triple toe loop from Anna, and this was among the highest scoring elements in the entire competition. And you can see this is her last frame right here, and up we go into that full rotation. Really, really good balance over here over the right side. You can see that we're definitely within the quarter here. I'm going to go back a little bit if I can. Yeah, we're definitely off the ice still here. Again, blame the lack of frames because the landing happened in between here, so they got a better look at exactly how that was. But again, we're looking at that fully backward. A lot of people talk about the pre-rotation there. We're going to start to see that there's a level of consistency and leeway that most of the skaters are being afforded. And there's an argument to be made, too, that Atari students gamify that more than anybody, and we're going to kind of talk about that, too. But it's within the range what I expect them to call okay. And I think that's the important thing, is we expect it to be called that way. And so when it happens in that particular way, don't be surprised when it shows up on the score sheet. And by the way, her score sheet showed like a straight A report card. I mean, she got GOE on everything, and it was a big part of how she eventually overtook Trusova in the end. All right, so now we're going to take a look at the triple toe loop here. Again, same situation here. She's getting the maximum amount of leeway, and you can tell by here, this is so leeway. There's like a so borderline. Is she off the ice? I mean, is her toe still touching the ice a little bit? This is a big part of why people complain. Again, I expect that to be considered to be okay from the judges' standpoint, because they tend to be less critical on that for most, and I'll see very few examples where they're going to get you on that when you have the landing go completely backwards like this. And you know, that's exactly what we see happen here. She's landing into that, and let's actually go back a couple more, and yeah, you can see maybe here, but again, still within the quarter and with exactly where you expect it to be called clean. Again, let's just pull up really quickly that again, it was actually the second place skate in the free skate. You know, she was partially held up by program components, partially held up by that lead. But as you can see, this element right here scored 18.66. It was among one of the highest combinations in the competition. Could have done it in the bonus, but again, I think this was really, for Anna, and her strategy was really about getting a lot of GOE. She clearly likes the flip more than the other quads. She really leaned on those two, and then just racking up GOE in the bonus and on big combination jumps. So again, you can just see a lot of points there. Same situation on this flip that we're about to look at. Very similar spread. Judge 7 does, by the way, just kind of taking a look at it, Judge 7 seems to be the stickler judge so far in this event, from what I can tell. Like, they're the one that's maybe a little bit stricter, maybe a little bit of a better judge than the rest. I don't know. All right, so let's go ahead and get back to this. We're going to take a look at the solo quad flip. By the way, I'm going to talk about some of the transitions too, just because I love them. And also, I just like to show how you can gamify transitions. They're one of the easiest things to quantify a type of difficulty in, and they're one of the easiest things to use to save time between elements, which doesn't get talked about a lot, but economics in your choreography between elements and giving yourself a lot of time to execute your spins particularly is something that does come into play when it comes to putting these programs together and maximizing the score. Okay, so last frame that she is clearly touching the ice is right here. Again, we can talk about that pre-rotation all you want. This is, again, in what I expect them to call okay for anybody. And we're going to get into the jump. And a little bit more forward, but again, she finds her way to that right side, just a little bit more forward on this one than the one before. And hey, come back here. Let's go back a little bit and take a look at this landing. Again, another one, super borderline. Could these have potentially been quarter calls or maybe even deserved quarter calls? Possible, right? I don't have those frames that they're making these judgments off of. What I do know is it's close, right? I mean, I think any quad in this competition should probably get a review, no matter what, given how close they all are. But as we can see here, as we're getting closer to it, again, I'm missing a lot of frames. I want to see what happened in between this. This is the one I see, and she is moving backwards. You can see her axis is slightly tilted out to her left, so it's not necessarily desirable, and she kind of pays for this through her core a little bit here. But again, she does a good job of just getting back into it, and simple transition right here, although that I think was just a nice little addition. Cool, old school kind of a move, honestly, right? Like really like a take on the sliding spiral, except with her leg over her head right there. And it's difficult to do. So even though the transition itself out of the jump was pretty basic, the movement preceding it was pretty difficult, and I think something that old school judges are going to take notice of because it's just one of those moves that doesn't get done a lot anymore. Okay, let's take a look at the Lutz, and I was more interested here in the edge than the actual time spent. I wasn't too worried about this being clean, and this is the only thing I don't have the right angles. Going back maybe a little further than I should there. This is all that I find curious here. Okay, so she's on an inside edge clearly right here, no doubt. Okay, now she does her pull to her outside edge. And you can see she's bending her knee, which is a great way to help you apply pressure to the outside edge. Still bending, still getting pressure on the outer edge. Now that movement in between here. Go back. This is why this angle's no good, and it looks like she might be beginning the process to flattening her edge or getting to an inner edge. I'm going to say that angle, that sure looks inner to me. And again, maybe worthy of being taken a look at. I'm going to assume that this one still is off the ice, and that is in between where she actually hit the ice. And if that's the case, they're going to be fine with that. Oh, here's the other reason why I liked this one. I think loop combos are special. They very seldomly get done. Here's a loop combo for you. And again, a lot like the toe loops. They're going to get every little bit of advantage that they can. Oh no, we went back way too far. All right, let's get a closer look at that loop now. Good knee bend right here. Good lift. Borderline. Again, this is another one that, man, let's take a look at what happened on the score sheet. Yeah, they gave this like totally clear. Yikes. I don't know about that. I mean, they're doing what? She did 2 quads and they're both flips. Alexandra did 5 quads. I mean, I don't know if we have to give them all these edges too. Another one where you'll notice that from the short program to the free skate, this is kind of across the board with the Russians, they eased up on the transitions a lot, knowing that they meant so much less to the score than it did in the free skate. And you're going to see that especially with Sasha here, because, I mean, Alexandra Trusova did absolutely no transitions practically at a certain point. She was almost only doing crossovers or chugging between elements. It was pretty clear her strategy involved almost all technical and being held up on the amount of program component scores she's going to get by having an outrageous amount of technical, which we can also debate. But bottom line here is the plan was clear. This was majorly on the technical side. So let's get into this here. Let's take a look at this flip. Again, same thing, getting the maximum amount you're going to be allowed. But again, clearly off the ice in between that frame too. So she's taking the maximum amount allowed, but I feel that's going to be fairly consistent across any skater. And we'll see if we find any exceptions to that in this video. This is another one where I really feel like this is pretty borderline. And again, every quad in this event should have been reviewed extensively, because these are as close as they can possibly get. I'm not sold she's on the ice there, but I think she could be. So this is where I'm sure she's on the ice. And I think it actually happened in between these frames. And I think you got to look at this. Let's see what they scored this in the competition. It got an edge call. But other than that, they didn't have an issue with that. And I kind of have an issue with that. I think that this is beyond borderline. Let's go back and take a look at that edge, though. I'm kind of curious. I can see the argument for the edge call based off of the way that they do that edge. Like, you can see her knee is clearly over her left outside edge at the time of the tap. This technique is a lot more similar to the Lutz because her free leg is actually totally in line with her left leg. She could avoid this by slightly moving her right foot over. But again, that might slow her ability to get into her rotation down, because if you take a look at it right here, she is literally squeezing her ankles away, and she's not going to get the same lift that a skater like Karen Chen might, where she's going to try and extract additional height because more time in the air is a good thing. She's going to try and get right into that rotation position. So having that be a Lutz-like takeoff is beneficial for that. Putting that slightly to the right is going to slow her abilities to get her ankles together. And as we saw, this was already pushing the limit of what should have been allowed in the first place. So kind of needed that edge call, I guess we can say. All right, here's the next one. Now, given that we know she likes the Lutz more than the flip, I can say that this is probably going to be called just fine. It's clearly an outside edge right there. Again, another one that this also leapfrogged, I guess. I put these in the wrong order apparently, and I'm just realizing that. But this was actually her one that did, as far as I remember, get called under-rotated, and it sure did look under-rotated. It only got the quarter, though. Okay, gonna give this one more look. Whoops, come back to me. Just absolutely tight all the way through that rotation. Land, man, yeah, I mean, I see right at the quarter, but I also see the same circular edge. That part of this is from their jumping technique. And by the way, you're going to see there their time in the air judgment was 0.57. It's about exactly, like I said 0.09 is about my estimated difference. So pretty close. I feel reasonably close then to where they felt they saw the landing with that measurement, given how many frames I'm missing. So still a 100th of a second difference, but it's the way it goes. Yeah, and right there, again, absolutely most borderline it could possibly be. And if I'm being honest, I feel like someone does a jump at that point, less likely to get that called as a quarter and more likely to have it really examined as an under rotation. And as you can see here, she just absolutely doesn't do a transition. She just literally does a half of a crossover to get away from that. And we're going to go into the other Lutz. This was the combination. And clearly off the ground. Let's go back a couple frames really quick. Yeah, still touching the ice there. Clearly off by there. And again, whatever little bit of extra rotation happened in those 200ths of a second in between those. So I'm going to say probably was off the ice in time for what they're going to consider okay. Now, this landing is significantly better, and this is another one where the landing happens in between frames that we have. This looks like she's still in the air to me, actually. But she might not be. But even then, that's within the quarter. So I feel like that's going to play a lot better, and probably why they called that one fine. Let's take a look at this toe loop as well. We're going to see how a lot of athletes are getting the toe loop. Now, this is interesting. That actually might have meant that I had the frame a second early, and I cut it off a second early because they had the same height on both of those Lutzes. I had them at slightly different heights, and I think the other one was maybe just a little bit more difficult to look at because that one should have been at least the same height. Okay, here's the toe loop. This one gets the knee all the way through here. This looks like the last frame she's going to be on the ice, and it is. Gets right into that rotation position. Another one that's a little borderline. And I think at this point, we just got to say that at least for the jumps that we've gone through so far, they're definitely being very lenient with that quarter. And it makes me wonder too if other skaters decided to be in this event with quads that were this close rather than, playing it safe and making sure that they went for the sure thing and got the element that should get called as it should. It makes me wonder how this might have turned out differently. Right here, I see her on the ice right there. Definitely see a little bit of the curvature on that edge as well. So, borderline. And once again, as we talked about, pretty much foregone on the transitions at this point. Here's the quad Salchow. Here's the takeoff. Last frame that they are touching the ice. Gets right up into the air. Nice and quick. Let's go back to that. I got to say, this is the best looking one out of the bunch, and it also got a review, and this is actually also totally in line with the Lutz, which I think this makes a lot of sense because a Salchow is going to get better on ice rotation than a Lutz anyway, so they're coming up with similar times right there. Makes sense to me that she's able to complete the rotation cleanly in their eyes. But I also would say I would expect someone's takeoff like this to be called fine. So one last look here and just try and get and you can definitely see there is still a little bit of that working of that edge. So again, definitely needed to be reviewed, no doubt about it. Okay. Quad toe loop. This was a little bit messier than some of the other jumps in the program. And this was the other major part where she cost herself some points that was really, the 1 point that separated her and Anna from first place. Looking fully off the ice by there. This one, rotation-wise, seems like it was less uncertain than probably any other jump in the competition that she did. This one seems to have the best backward landing out of any of them. And it also happened to be the one that she flipped out of. So there's definitely that ability to control that landing, and it's just something that I think should be factored into the quality of some of these jumps a little bit more. I think there's a lot of emphasis on under rotation, but I think there needs to be a little bit of emphasis placed on out of control over rotation like we saw right there. Okay, let's get through Kamila a little bit quickly. We know she did not have a good skate. This was one of the most shocking things that I think anybody could have possibly expected, and there were certainly an enormous amount of pressure placed on her. She is a young athlete. Some of the scrutiny that she had was certainly to bring up the fairness of the competition. In another sense, she's also a child, and we don't even really fully know the role that she played, if any, in what happened. So there's so much to look at here, but we're going to take a quicker look at just why things did not go Kamila's way tonight, and we're going to start with the triple axel. Even though the quad Salchow came first, I think the triple axel is a huge deal because the triple axel is still a 5, 6, and we're starting to get into 7 and 8 point swings over a double axel with GOE. And as we pointed out in the short program video, a triple axel that is completed messy will still score better than a double axel that is fabulous. So this is something that potentially needs to get looked at, in the system. So she's clearly off the ice here. Here's the last frame I see. She's definitely on the ice. Could still be on the ice right here. I think I gave her the benefit of the doubt only because of the lack of frames. And as you can see on some of these other ones, I was a little stingier with my margin of error compared to their camera. So I wish I had those frames is basically what I'm saying. And we're going to go ahead and get her up into the air. And you can already see things are moving to her left side as she's rotating. And then this is just going to be such a problem for her ability to control the landing. She also looks well short on rotation. And she was. And this is just going to begin one of many issues that she's going to have. I mean, she had the first quad on the quarter, and this is going to be interesting to see what she got called on the quarter for and what other people didn't. Her combination was cheated, although it's hard to even really judge that because she fell out of her rotation in the middle of it because of her completely to the left side rotation position. So there was an aspect of self-preservation in that too. Either way, this one was even more chaotic than her short program one, so that didn't go too well. Next up, we're going to take a look at the quad Salchow. This was her first element of the program, and this one got called with the quarter. So this is going to be interesting to see. Here she is, right at the time she's about to take off. First frame, I see her to be all the way in the air, and again, this is getting as much of it as she possibly can before I think that she would get called for turning too much on the ice. But she's okay. She's in the clear right there. This, however, is a major problem. And again, this kind of reminds me a little bit of Alyssa Liu's triple axel situation. Even if the landing is here, and I think I even gave her the extra frame as the benefit of the doubt, even though you could maybe make the argument she's on the ice here, she's totally on the ice by there, and all of these are like right at the quarter, and I'm not sure this is really worse than what Alyssa got, and I feel Alyssa took a more severe punishment on her triple axel. Let me double check, make sure I'm saying that. Yeah, she did. She got the full-on downgrade, which comes with the GOE penalty and everything. So this is another one of those, like, if you want to point into a judging inconsistency, I would have a bone to pick right here for sure. This was slightly overscored in my opinion. And you kind of start to wonder how much of this is like based off a reputation, because for the most part, these have been cleaner all season. Everything she's done up until 2 days ago has been significantly stronger than what we've seen. So this is, things happen quick, and there might be some disbelief going on here too. Quad toe could actually still be on the ice right here. I think I gave her the benefit of the doubt because frames. And this one had the better backward landing. This was her toe loop in the bonus, it looks like. And yep, another one. Oh no, this is the one where she went for the Salchow. My mistake. So yeah, both of these were fine though. This was the Salchow that the problem was on, and it's pretty easy to see. I mean, she's just not in her typical rotation position, and I don't even think I bothered to time the second jump on this one. You can see by here, she's practically bailing out of this jump. Just she knows it's not going well. She's so short on rotation. And yeah, it's just... Once she started going up the ladder with her leg, that was kind of just her trying to cling on for dear life. And in a certain sense, it's really good if you can get that to go in line with your hip. But what was happening for her is she was just creating a wrap. So she's like trying to make this work, but like her body's trying to tell her, no, don't make this work. And yeah, that was among many rough elements for her in this program. And she also took the fall, which means the mandatory deduction. And here's the other toe. This one was the cleanest one. Last frame she was on the ice was right. Here, again, another one that you can just see the rotation axis is totally out to the left. This was the good news for her, though. She did land backwards, and this is part of the Russian strategy in the free skate. Obviously, they all wanted to skate clean. They all wanted to skate perfectly. But when you look at the differentiation of the scores, and even how Kamila ended up in 4th place with this many errors, this is part of why they were able to get there. These backwards landed quadruple jumps that are giving them a good amount of credit, so that even when they have a disaster like this, as long as they can rely on the fact that it was fully rotated. And here's another one, again, missing frames. Time in the air was a lot closer on my measurement to theirs, and I would just love to have their camera on that. All right, now let's take a look at the greatest triple axel in the event. And I thought this was just such an exciting moment. I strongly feel like this was probably the 4th place skate in reality, but as we have already taken a look at, there was some expectations that had been set in the past that maybe got the leeway. We know the leeway was a lot less likely to happen for Wakaba, but nonetheless, let's take a look at everything that's great about this triple axel. Here's the last frame. I see her on the ice. This is a great takeoff. The only thing that I like a little bit differently, and it's tough to say too, but I like the right leg to follow through a little bit more. I think that she could extract a little bit more height, but I feel like she has a little bit of a hybrid technique too, where she's halfway trying to work it more like the Americans, where she wants that flow to go up with her, but also wants the tighter air position sooner in the jump than some of the Americans might get. And this is kind of similar to what I see a lot of the Japanese do, is they sort of have worked a hybrid kind of between classic American technique and what you see a lot of the Russians doing in terms of trying to get into the peak rotation position sooner. And it's sort of the best of both worlds. It works for a lot of skaters. And you're going to see it definitely works here. This is a clean triple axel, and it was the highest scoring axel in the event. And you can see right here, still in the air. We could use some frames right there, but there's really no debate. That's as backwards is going to come, and not worried at all. You can see a little bit of a stiff knee on the landing. I'm not going to be really bothered by that. And then the last one I wanted to do is a side-by-side of the triple axels of Wakaba and Alyssa Liu, and just show how close they were to each other and what we can maybe expect out of Alyssa Liu going forward should we see her compete through another Olympic cycle. And we're going to get them right up. Let's go back. We're going to need a better look at those than that. Although it is interesting to watch them in full speed too. And we will do that again before we finish up this video. Okay. And you can kind of both see they both subscribe to the pull the arms back. And this is kind of why I said that the Japanese have something that are similar to a hybrid technique, where you might see some of the Russian skaters pull both of their arms to the right side. Here you're going to see that pull back. Then it's going to create a different effect on your way up. And I think that that effect is a beneficial thing that helps with the flow going out of jumps, and it definitely helps here in this jump. Right now you can both see they're on their follow through, they're getting their legs through, they're both about to take off. Similar takeoffs. You can kind of see the point that I made about the follow through, and I see it a little bit more here with Alyssa. That right leg makes it through a little bit more like I prefer. But they both do an effort to get into their rotation positions quickly. And I think the only difference that you might see here between these two might be in frames, because I think that they were actually in their peak position relatively similarly there. You gotta love the axis on Wakaba, and I think that's really one of the other main differences. There's a little bit more height. You can see she's clearly in the air a little bit longer, whereas Alyssa is probably on her last frame. And you can also see that her left shoulder is a little bit more square than she would like it, whereas Wakaba has that gorgeous left shoulder in front of the right hip, allowing her to stay in that peak rotation position just a little bit longer. And now she's getting to wrap that up, bam, right over that right side. I gotta say, as gorgeous as this was in real time, just watching it in slow motion and just getting a look at each of the individual physics and how well that's balanced over her right side is just a testament to how great her triple axel is. That thing is incredible. And you can see a little bit of a swing out too. If you get a little bit more of that momentum to go up with you, you can usually turn that into an edge that's a little bit less swingy and has a little bit more ride, and you'll start to see things like what Hanyu does, for example. He's got one of the greatest triple axels in the world and of all time, and he does extremely difficult transitions in and out of it, and it's just one of the ways that he's able to maximize his score. And this is something that if that edge is just a little bit stronger, Wakaba could start putting in really difficult transitions off of a triple axel that good and start scoring even better there. Okay, so that's just a look at some of the major elements in the skating, but I'm sure a lot of you are going to want to start seeing some videos about what happened afterwards. I'm not going to cover any of that. I can't even begin to speculate. All of my arguments begin and end with, I need to know more about this doping scandal and how deep it goes within Eteri's camp, what things are being hidden. We know there's certainly a lot of rumblings out there about stuff that's happened. People have seen things, people have said things. I don't really want to get into all of that speculation. I kind of just want to talk about what we saw in the competition. But one thing that we did see in the competition today was an absolute circus after the results. We had one skater completely unconsolable, another one completely left alone after they won the event, and then another one what seemed to be angry about the results of the event. And there's just a lot to unpack about all of that and the how and the why. And I just hope that people continue to look at this with a magnifying glass and really try to understand that beyond what's happening with some of these close calls in the competition and some of the inconsistencies that I'm pointing out here, potentially, we really need to understand what role this doping scandal plays and how deep it truly goes to understand the scope of what happened in the women's free skate at the 2022 Beijing Olympics. I hope you enjoyed my video, and like and subscribe if you want to have more content. I had someone make a request for the men's breakdown of that, and I'd be happy to do it. So look out for that sometime in the future, but I'll probably be doing a little bit more examining of the women's free skate as I have more time to just unpack. We're just hours after it happened, and this was just my initial impression of some of the major elements, but I have a feeling we're going to be talking about this one for a little bit longer. So yeah, I will talk to you soon.